Once again, my name is Ned Bloom. I work on our volunteer services department with the Red Cross. I started as a volunteer myself about 13 years ago. And we're going to actually talk about one of the positions that I started with. We're going to have an opportunity to hear from some other people as well during our presentation today. In fact, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Lynn Cohen. Lynn, how would you like to come off camera and introduce yourself? That'd be wonderful.
Hi, good morning. Well, afternoon, everybody. My name is Lynn. I've been with the Red Cross for a little over 4 years now. I work with the Delaware Valley chapter, which is Delaware, Chester, and Montgomery counties. I'm a senior recruitment specialist like Ned, and we are always looking for new, fabulous, wonderful volunteers, and we have a couple fabulous volunteers here today to share their experience with you. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Ned. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. And in fact, Lynn did mention we have two other wonderful guests with us, so we're going to have an opportunity to hear from them later, and they'll introduce themselves. But we're going to hear from Marty Westerman, who works on our disaster action team, and Marianne Santangelo, who is a blood donor ambassador. Two very, very important positions, and we look forward to hearing from both of them later about their own experience as a volunteer. A couple of ground rules as we get started, kind of housekeeping, if you will. We do ask if you could, for now, please mute yourself and keep yourself off camera. It kind of reduces the bandwidth and make sure this presentation is not interrupted. There is a chat box at the top of my screen, probably the top of your screen as well. Just a little sound bubble or a little voice bubble, and you can always use that chat feature to put a question into the chat box, or you can hold on to your question until the end when we open things up for discussion. Hopefully, we'll try to answer some of those questions preemptively as we go along. You also see our nice reactions button. So if we see something we like, if you hear something that you like and you want to give a little applause or a little thumbs up, please feel free to do that as well. There you go. I do see a thumbs up there. Much appreciated. So this is our whole new world, our virtual world. It's a wonderful tool that we have available to us. And we're so glad that we can connect with you this way in this space. And we look forward to connecting with you in future spaces as well. So our agenda for today, we're going to introduce the Red Cross. A lot of you, of course, heard the words Red Cross. You may even know some of the things that we do, but we're going to review our mission. We're going to talk about some of the things that we do. Then we're going to talk about some of those high priority volunteer needs. And while you're considering these high priority needs, understand that the most important part of this volunteering opportunity of the Red Cross is whatever we have to offer is based on your availability, based on your schedule and your interests. The Red Cross does so many things that we really want to make sure our volunteers are doing something that interests them and fits on their schedule. And you can change your path along the way, you can add to and explore all kinds of opportunities. But we're going to talk about some of our biggest needs, our most urgent needs during this presentation. We're going to hear from those volunteers I mentioned earlier, both Marty and Marianne, who are wonderful, and we look forward to hearing their experience and how much they enjoy working with the Red Cross. And then we'll talk about how you can get started, because everybody, we do have a process, and we do have that, we do have a registration process, and we make sure that we're all on the same page. And then we'll open up for discussion, and we can talk about anything you'd like and anything that has any questions. So with that, let's get started. Excuse me. Apparently, when I talk a lot, I also go a little bit hoarse. So what is the mission of the Red Cross? This is actually on the back of my business card. I'm very, very proud of this. And this is really how we like to kick off most presentations. The Red Cross prevents and alleviates human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. It's a very powerful mission statement. We're very proud of it. And there's three parts of this mission statement that I always like to refer to. The first part is we prevent and alleviate human suffering. That is our goal. That is our mission. Everything we do comes back to preventing and alleviating human suffering. So all of our actions go back to that very statement. And we do it through the power of volunteers. Many of them are on this call today. As I said, I started as a volunteer myself. In fact, 90% of our workforce is made up of volunteers, which is quite remarkable when you think about it. We're a multi-million-dollar organization nationwide, internationally, and 90% of our workforce is made up of volunteers who lead everything we do. No volunteers means no mission, and that is simply not an acceptable option. And the generosity of donors, it's also part of that mission statement. The generosity of donor actually is a dual meaning. Of course, we talk about financial donors, and we're not here today to ask for anybody's money. We will never do that in this space. But the generosity of donors is true because our funding does not come from the United States government. We're the country's largest humanitarian organization that gets zero money from the government. So all of our funding comes from private organizations and private individuals, and we cannot thank them enough. The generosity of donors also has a dual meaning that talks about, refers to our blood donors. And we're going to talk about more about our blood drives and how those efforts are conducted in this presentation. So that's the mission. And this is why everybody is here today. And we very much appreciate it. And well, we're dedicated to this. So what does the Red Cross do? Again, you've heard the words. You now know that we alleviate human suffering. So we've broken it into a number of different departments. For instance, our Biomedical Services Department, also known more commonly as Blood Services. So we're responsible for about half of the country's blood supply. Here in the Philadelphia market and the tri-state area, we're responsible for a much larger percentage. And we collect blood, and it all goes to our blood processing center at 7th and Spring Garden Street, where it's processed and sent out to hospitals the very next day. And we're always asking for blood donations. We're always making sure these blood drives are ramped up because blood has a very short shelf life. But we can't run these blood drives, as we'll talk about, without our volunteers and making sure the blood gets to the right places. Our Disaster Cycle Services Department, and the word cycle is very important here because we help people before a disaster, during a disaster, and after a disaster. And that takes on many, many roles. And those roles are across the board for all volunteers to be available. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well as we continue along. Our Service to the Armed Forces Division. This is actually a very strong and very powerful part of the Red Cross. It's actually where our history began. We help people in the U.S. military, their families, as well as those on active duty and veterans. And if you're ever interested in learning more about our Service to the Armed Forces Division, please reach out. We'd be happy to answer those questions. Our other two lines of service include training services, teaching Red Cross. We teach CPR, first aid, life-saving, babysitting. And I always tell our volunteers who get CPR training, and that CPR training is free for volunteers. That's a skill that I hope we all have, and we hope we never have to use. But again, it's an important skill to know in CPR training. And our international services, again, we are an international organization. There's one Red Cross in virtually every country of the world. We're all pulling in the same direction. And we all get one vote at the international table in Geneva, Switzerland. So those are the 5 services of the American Red Cross and the things that we do. And again, these are all led by volunteers doing what interests them and on their schedule and their availability. So let's talk about some of the very specific jobs that we have available and some of our very high priority needs. The first one that we're going to talk about today is what we call being a duty officer, also known as a dispatcher. This is probably one of our most important and flexible and remarkably vital volunteer positions. When there was a disaster, we're not first responders, but the fire department and the police are their first responders. But they're going to contact a Red Cross volunteer, a dispatcher, and together they're going to confirm whether or not, I'm sorry, did we lose my picture there? Did we lose my presentation? Is it still up there? Awesome. No. It just changed off my screen. So the duty officer.
Yeah, it changed on mine also. Yeah.
There you go. The duty officer position.
I am so sorry, Ted. I did something and it's my fault. I'm trying to get it fixed.
No worries.
We see you. I don't see your slides now.
Let me pull up the presentation one more time. Give me 1 second, people. We like to tell people that flexibility is rule number 1 in the Red Cross, and this is a perfect example of it. We all have to be flexible. We all have to roll with the punches. So no worries at all.
Let's see how quick you can recover from this, Ned.
Oh, okay. Is this a test?
The pressure is on, Ned.
It should be uploading now. Yeah.
Nice job. You could be on my team.
Outstanding. So we're back to the cover page.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. Let's advance to the duty officer role. We're talking about the duty officer role. Thank you, guys. Thank you for bearing with me. So the duty officer role, as I says, this is our sort of a linchpin operation. And that's the wonderful, neat thing about this particular volunteer opportunity is that you can do it from home. You can do it while you're wearing your pajamas. You can do it while watching television. because essentially you sign up for what we call on-call hours. And your on-call shift may go from Wednesday at noon till Wednesday at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And if nothing happens during your window of availability, you just go about your normal day. But the expectation is if there is an event, if you do get that call, if you do get that email, you can put aside what you're doing and respond accordingly. And responding accordingly in this position means working as a liaison between the authorities that are in the field and our Red Cross responding personnel, providing them with support, providing them with advice, capturing data from the event as well. So it's a very, very flexible position that's always based on your schedule. You sign up for shifts, and you can change your shifts weekly or monthly. And we usually ask for about 2, 3, or maybe even 2 or 3 shifts a month, maybe 1 shift a week. And again, during your shift of availability, if nothing happens, which is most of the time, you go about your normal day. But if there is an event, the expectation is you can put that aside and become that linchpin, become that centerpiece that's supporting the in-field team and the liaison with the local authorities. It requires a computer, strong internet, strong communication skills. But again, it's one of the most important and most flexible positions. So if you're looking for something you can do from home that allows you to be a volunteer while you're making dinner, while you're watching television, this is a tremendous opportunity. And you can stay at home, and not a lot of opportunities offer that chance to work from home. So please, I urgently consider it. All training is provided, and even when you're on the position, there's an entire team behind you in support. There's a paid staff as well, so you're always supported by anybody who's available to answer questions, so you're never alone. And I know that I was a responder myself in the field, and our duty officers, also known as the dispatchers, were our support mechanism, and we could not do without them. So then, I urgently consider this position if it's something you'd like to work from home. The next position I want to talk about is our disaster action team members themselves. These are the ones who are in the field, and this is where I started. But you probably have heard enough from me for right now, so I'm going to actually call on one of my friends who is actually a disaster action team member here now, Marty Westerman. Marty, good to see you. How are you?
Thank you, Ned. Doing well. Thanks.
Please, if you could come and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what brought you to the Red Cross, how long you've been here, and what you like about this job and why people may want to consider it.
Sure.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I'm Marty Westerman, as Ned said, and I'm not a seasoned vet like you heard Ned talk about and Lynn talk about. About this time last year, I was sitting just like you guys are now, debating, how I want to help our neighbors in the area. So I've been with the Red Cross for about 8 months now, and my job is I'm the disaster action team coordinator for Chester County. So along with doing responses to disasters, I also do training for new folks and work with our new people and make sure they get their training, make sure they know what they're doing. I go on responses with our new people, and we work with the other counties. So that's a little bit what I'm doing now. How did I start? So I started, my sister is, she's a blood ambassador, and I retired from Exelon Nuclear in 2018. And at that time, I made a promise to myself that I would volunteer, that I would give back. Like many of us, I've been fortunate in my life. I worked 40 years in nuclear power, have a great family. Don't be mad at me, but I have a pension also, so that gives me a lot of flexibility. But it took me a little while to start to volunteer. Knee replacement, and then COVID got in our way, right? So then finally, this time last year, I started talking to my sister about positions with the Red Cross. And she turned me to the website, started looking through the website, and found the disaster action team. So I made some phone calls, made some connections, went through some interviews, and then started some training for the disaster action team. So disaster action team training, it'll take you we give about 8 hours of online training. So once you finish your training, you'll start going on responses with us. I started on responses. One of my first responses was apartment fire, and I was the guy carrying the water bottles around and just watching our other responders. The one thing you'll notice with the Red Cross is the people that you work with, people like Lynn and Ned and all, and the people that I work with are just great people. They're really inspirational. The more I go out with them, the more I want to go out and help my neighbors. So that's the first thing I noticed. Here I am, a guy not knowing too much, carrying around water bottles and watching these people trying to help their neighbors. So that's what really got me going. I wanted to really get more involved with the Red Cross, and that's how I actually end up becoming the coordinator for Chester County. So why is that a good match for me? Like Ned talked about the flexibility. So as I'm talking to you today, I'm actually in Virginia and watching my grandson. So we're down here for the week. We watch every couple of weeks. We come down to Virginia, or he comes up with us, and that gives me the flexibility in my schedule to do the things that I want and need to do in life also. So that's what's really important to me. What we do ask, if you're volunteering with our DAT team, is we ask for about 24 hours a month for you to be on an on-call schedule. So that's about 6 hours a week. We ask you to be on an on-call schedule. Like Ned said, with the duty officer, who I really depend on, is you may not get a call at all, but you made yourself available to respond to help your neighbors in need. So that's really good about the DAT being on the schedule and being on the DAT team. So what do we do for DAT? What we are is we're basically the Red Cross first responders. So I would say 90%, when we talk about disasters, about 90% of the time that we respond, we're responding to a single family fire. So a fire that happened in the Southeast Pennsylvania area, we can respond to. My primary area is Chester County, but I'll also, on my own, work with Philadelphia, Montgomery County, Delaware County, and Bucks County. So the firemen go out, put out the fire, and then these poor people, they need some help, right? So that's where the Red Cross comes in. What happens is probably the fire chief or a 911 will call 1-800-RED CROSS, and they'll talk to our duty officers. Duty officers will get all the information they can about the people that had disasters. We call them clients, respectfully call them clients. So the duty officer will get the information. He'll look at the on-call schedule, and he'll call somebody like myself. He'll call somebody like myself, and we always go out with a partner. So we never go out alone. So duty officer will give me all the information on how to respond to the client, where the client lives, any information that we should know, if there was any fatalities, if there was any pets involved, how many people are in the family. So he'll give us a lot of information before we ever go out. Then I'll go ahead and talk to our teammate who we're going to go out with. We'll decide we're going to meet at a certain point before we get to the area where the fire or the other disaster is. And we'll meet together and we'll do a safety briefing. It may be a new DAT member also. So it'll be the first time we really get to introduce ourselves. We'll be able to talk to each other's skill sets. So we get to say how we're going to take care of the client. So we get to know each other a little bit, do a safety briefing with each other, and then together we'll go to the client's house. We'll either meet with the client at their house or wherever the duty officer. Sometimes we meet at a hotel or a safe location. So we'll be the first people to show up and actually be there. The fire people, like we said, took care of the fire. Now we're here to take care of the client. How do we take care of the client? So if the house becomes uninhabitable, we're able to provide financial assistance to the client to be able to get them into a shelter, or not a shelter, but maybe a hotel, or if they're staying with friends or neighbors, we'll still be able to give them financial assistance. And this financial assistance will be able to just take a little bit of the burden off them for a couple of days. The purpose of the disaster action team is to give these folks some short-term relief. So right away, we're out there to take some burden off of them. So what we'll do is with the client is we'll do an intake with them. So we'll get all the information that we can off of them. We'll provide them with financial assistance if it's proper. We also are able to provide them if they have some health needs. So if their medicines were burned up in the fire, we'll be able to help them with their doctors, their pharmacies. If they because this may be the worst disaster that happened in their life, we'll be able to provide some people to talk to them from their mental health and their spiritual health. So I may spend with my teammate about an hour with our client, and we're there to give them that immediate relief. And then we work with the client, and we tell them that if they have any other needs that day, to call 1-800-RED CROSS. And then we basically turn over what we have from the client to our caseworkers. And the caseworkers will do the follow-up work. And the follow-up work is to make sure that the clients are okay and to help them in the recovery. So what's real important is we provide the assistance, but we need the clients to take ownership of their own recovery. But we'll be along them, holding their hand through this and help them get through this disaster through the disaster action team, and then through our casework, who will talk to them within 24 to 48 hours. So I've given you a lot of information. And really what I want to ask you today is, if you're the type of person that sees a need, especially in this world today, that just a simple need to take care of your neighbors, to be able to provide immediate relief to the neighbor, simple care and compassion, to listen to their story, to provide them with a shelter over their head for a couple of days, them and their family, then I highly would recommend that you would consider the disaster action team. At the end of this, I'll go ahead on the chat. Ned talked about the chat. I'll put my phone number so that if you want to talk to me more about the disaster action team, and maybe I can give you a little bit of an orientation and try to convince you maybe a little bit more how you can help your neighbors, you can just reach out to me and call me. So that's my story. I laid out a lot today. Hopefully you would consider helping through the Red Cross, through the disaster action team, through a duty officer, or through any other group, because there's a lot of flexibility and there's a lot of need for Red Cross folks. Ned?
Awesome. Oh, Marty, that was terrific. And I hear the pride that you're sharing, and the reward that you get out of this experience is awesome, because I have performed this role myself, and I know that it was a very rewarding experience to go from being at home a couple, 3 hours later back home. But during that interim, I helped somebody during their worst time. So, and the teamwork that you mentioned is awesome as well. I could not do it without a team, and
That's
everybody
correct.
always has that team effort. So again, thank you very, very much. And we're thrilled to have you on this team, and
Thank you.
honored to work with you. So
Thanks.
stick around, so we might have some questions for you later. You might have some questions coming later. So we're
You
going to
bet.
switch gears, because we've now talked about our disaster team and some of the things that we do, positions available to work from home or from the field, or both. I mean, some volunteers do multiple roles depending on what their interests are. But we're going to switch to our biomedical service department. This is the thing that maybe most people know us for, the Red Cross. And with that, I'm going to bring back my friend, my colleague, Lynn Cohen, who's going to talk about some of this position, and she has a special guest to introduce as well. Lynn, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ned. So I don't have, the thing about the blood donor ambassadors, and I really want Marianne to introduce this and share her experience, but this is another great role that's very flexible, and it's very important to our organization, because when we have blood donor ambassadors, the blood drives run more smoothly, more blood is collected, which means more lives are saved. So this is Marianne's going to talk about the flexibility. She can also talk about some of the other opportunities that she does here with the Red Cross, because she trains a lot of the incoming blood donor ambassadors as well. And, while we're focusing on these 4 positions today, we have a multitude of positions open at any given time. So if, one of these aren't quite your cup of tea, please feel free to reach out to Ned or myself, because we have many more opportunities available. With that, I am going to turn it over to our wonderful volunteer, Marianne. She is a blood donor ambassador, which kind of brought her into another role to do the training. She also is a community volunteer leader for the Delaware Valley chapter. and she participates in our preparedness programs, which are Prepare with Pedro and our Pillowcase project. And she's also on our recruitment team. So Marianne can talk about how she fits all these things into her busy life, and as well as she does other volunteer opportunities in the community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marianne, who can talk more in depth about this fabulous role. So with that, Marianne.
Hi, Lynn. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Blood donor ambassador work is often the entry point to volunteering with the Red Cross. A lot of people start there, and that's what I did. I retired at the end of 2019, and then when COVID hit, I really wanted to help. And it wasn't easy to help because places were closed and people were afraid of being in an environment where other people were. But I felt, and I learned to be true, that blood drives were quite safe, especially with the protocols that the Red Cross put into place. And so I started there. I chose the Red Cross initially as a place where I would volunteer. Like Marty, it was time to give back. I had had a wonderful career, and I was in a position where I didn't have to continue working in my old age. And I decided I would start volunteering, which was always my plan. And the reason I chose the Red Cross, and I cannot say it better than Ned said, it was the mission, because an organization who is there to alleviate human suffering, and that is done mostly by volunteers. I mean, how could you resist how that tugs at anyone's heartstrings who has a humanitarian bone in their body? So I chose the Red Cross, and I started as a blood donor ambassador. So what the heck's a blood donor ambassador? Well, the definition of an ambassador is a diplomatic agent of the highest rank, an authorized representative. And that's really a nice way to think about what we do. Blood drives are life-saving events. What would we do without the Red Cross? What would we do if your family or friend or any of our neighbors or community was in need of blood for survival or to gain health? And the Red Cross is there, especially in the Delaware Valley, as Ned said, where we are far and away the primary organization to collect and distribute blood. So as an ambassador, what we do is we work at blood drives as a team with the collections team and the staff who is there actually taking blood. We play a very, very important role in supporting that blood drive. We are the front office manager, if you will. When blood donors come in, who are the most wonderful people who willingly give up a pint of their blood on a regular basis, when they come in, we greet them. We confirm that they have an appointment. We answer any questions they may have. We get them checked into the computer system. We monitor them after they've given blood to be sure they're not having a negative reaction. We make sure the refreshments are out, because after you give blood, you're encouraged to sit and have a drink and a snack, and we make sure that's all taken care of. And we thank them a whole lot. I like to call it the GCCMT job: greet, confirm, check in, monitor, thank. So that's kind of what we do, but why do we do it? Well, the real job, I mean, that's the mechanics of being a blood donor ambassador. But the real job really is managing that experience for the donor. We're the first ones they interact with when they come in. We're the friendly face. We're thanking them for coming, talking to them, allaying their fears if they have any. We really set the tone from the minute they walk in the door for their experience over the next hour. And that's really what we do. We're the first ones they interact with. We're the last ones they see before they walk out the door. So we are there to make them reinforce their decision to be a blood donor ambassador by making them feel really, really good before they leave us. And the goal is for them to come back again and again to give blood. So in summary, why would you be a blood donor ambassador? Well, the ability to help the Red Cross deliver its mission, of course. The opportunity to play a very important role in a life-saving event, which every blood drive truly is, and the flexibility of working where and when you are available to work, whether it's once a week, every other week, or once a month. You will see the blood drives and you will register for the ones that are convenient and available for you. It's a full day. They're 5-hour blood drives. It isn't hard work. It's not what Marty does. You can bring a book and get some downtime and actually relax, but you're meeting great people. You're working in a team in a very, very collaborative environment. And it's just a wonderful way to spend an afternoon or a morning or an early evening. So that's the blood donor ambassador job. Why it would be good for you if you are the type of person who enjoys interacting with people and, of course, being helpful, which is all of the jobs for the Red Cross give us that ability. You will enjoy blood donor ambassador work. And so I started there and I still do that. I really, really enjoy that work very much. I've made some wonderful friends. You know, you see the same collections team members over the years and you just get to know them when you walk in. You know, I'm on a hugging basis with some of them. But after that, I decided I still had time on my hands. So I started getting involved in other things, as Lynn mentioned. So today I'm in the disaster cycle services through the preparedness door. I do youth preparedness. We go into the grade schools and teach kids how to prepare for emergencies and how to share with their families, how to avoid them to begin with. And I work with Lynn on recruitment. I'm a community leader in the Delaware Valley, which basically means I am there to help expand our reach. I meet with local officials, I speak at Rotary clubs, and just letting people know the things that the Red Cross does, because we're more than blood and floods, and a lot of people don't know all of the services we offer the community. And the more we can let people know about that, the more they can take advantage of what the Red Cross has to offer them. And that is, I think, about all I will say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann, so much for all that you do. And, you know, everything you said was spot on. You are, you know, truly an ambassador of the Red Cross, and we really appreciate you. Both you and Marty gave excellent presentations, and we're so fortunate to have you on the team. I think that, you know, one of the things that both Marty and Mary Ann mentioned is the training. So, you know, we want to provide consistent delivery of our services. So we definitely do provide some great training. So you're going to learn some new skills and some new information that you're going to be able to take with you for the rest of your life. So thank you both so much for sharing your wonderful experiences with the Red Cross. I am going to talk a little bit about our biomedical blood transportation specialist role. So this is a role that is another way to help save lives. So once the blood is collected from our blood drives, it has to be processed. So we have blood transportation specialists who volunteer, and again, it's a very flexible position. You sign up for a couple shifts per month. You can definitely do more. Each shift is about 4 hours, and you take 1 to 2 routes per month. Again, always on your schedule. And you are literally delivering the gift of life. So if you are picking up blood from blood drives and taking it to our 7th and Spring Garden location, which is in Center City, and dropping it off so it can be processed. You're helping save lives that way, getting the blood so it can be ready to go out to the hospitals, or you can pick it up from the processing center and take it out to the hospitals. And then you can also be on call if you wish. Sometimes they have emergency transports. So maybe there's a mass casualty or they need more blood than they thought. Sometimes they have emergency runs that if you're the kind of person that likes to be on call, that you can be available for those as well. So you really are delivering the gift of life and saving lives. I know that I was at a blood drive not too long ago, and I like to talk to people about why they're there, why they're donating. And there was a family there, and it was a husband and a wife, and they said that they were there because their mother had been at the hospital the week before, and she is a sickle cell patient, and they weren't sure if they were going to have the blood there to transfuse her that day. And they said that their mother called them sitting in the hospital waiting and concerned whether or not she was going to get the life-saving transfusion that she needed. So that family was very concerned, and they decided it was time to go roll up their sleeves and donate. But with this role, you can use your own vehicle, or we have Red Cross vehicles out in that you can utilize to deliver and pick up the blood. And sometimes when you see those vehicles out on the road, they might be doing just that, have blood in the back of the vehicle, getting it to a hospital or getting it to the processing center. So you can also do these routes by yourself or with a friend. And like Ned mentioned earlier, that we collect and distribute about 40% of the nation's blood supply. And someone in the United States needs blood every 2 seconds. So whether it's a cancer patient, a sickle cell patient, whether it's someone who's been in an accident or had some kind of trauma, these are the folks that need the life-saving blood that our fabulous donors roll up their sleeves to lay on the table for about 20 minutes to get that blood collected and get it to the processing center or to the hospitals. There are a few other requirements for this role, and it involves requiring that you have a valid state driver's license and proof of insurance, that you have 3 years of a clean driving record, and that you can lift up to 45 pounds. And then we also like you to have the ability to follow directions, protocols. Sometimes it's a little different at some of the hospitals. I know some people ran into that during the time of COVID. So I'm not sure if I'm missing anything regarding this position. You are definitely delivering hope. You are definitely delivering the gift of life, literally. So with that, I'm going to move on. Is there anything I missed, Ned, that I could add?
No, that was great. And again, it's a remarkable role, and it helps make sure that the blood gets where and when it is needed. And that is the very definition of delivering the gift of life. So if you like to drive, if you like to use our vehicles, if you like to use your own vehicles, that may be a position you consider as well. But Lynn's going to tell you a little bit how you can get started and the process, our registration process, and how we help you along the way.
Yeah, so thanks, Ned. So everybody has to start at the Red Cross at the same place. We ask that everybody creates a volunteer profile or application, and you can do that by going to the link that's right there. We can also put the link in the chat. But if you go to www.redcross.org/volunteer or /volunteer today, it's going to pop up with our most needed positions. So I know all the positions we talked about today, I believe, are listed there. And there will be a little blue button on it that says apply today or apply now. And that's how you can start your application. If you just go to redcross.org, there's also a tab on the screen, the home screen, that says volunteer. You can click on that. Thanks for putting that in the chat, Ned. And it will take you there as well. So you're going to have create a profile, a password, share some information about yourself, and then you're going to either have talked to Ned and myself so we have an idea of what you want to do, or you're going to speak with a member of our intake team. And so they're going to explore some options with you. If you don't know what you want to do, they're going to share some of the expectations and kind of help you decide what you want to do. After you meet with the intake team, they are going to refer you to the actual department. So that department is going to answer any questions you have in more depth and detail. They're going to ask you a few more questions, share more in depth and detail about the role. And if it's a good match, they are going to assign you a volunteer supervisor or manager. They are going to onboard you and train you and introduce you to fellow volunteers. During the training and scheduling process, this is where you're going to be able to see, okay, like Marianne mentioned, if you're a blood donor ambassador, you're going to be able to go in and see what blood drives need volunteers and sign up for the blood drive right on the computer. It's quick, fast, and easy. You'll see the location of the blood drive. You'll know that it's close to you. So, or where you're going to be going to. So again, that scheduling is up to you. Same with your on-call shifts. So as Marty mentioned, for the disaster action team, you need to put in 6-hour shifts about 4 times a month. You may or may not get calls, but that's when you're available, and you schedule that yourself. So maybe Monday you're available 10 to 4, and then maybe you're not available the next week until Saturday from 1 to 7, so it's totally up to you. And then we keep you engaged. We do check-in, we do pulse surveys. We want to keep you involved. We recognize you. We do celebration of volunteer events, which we just had in December. We have Volunteer Appreciation Week, where we try to do activities and keep you engaged. And, you can always ask questions too. If there's something else, you look around and you want to do something else, that you can ask your supervisor. You can ask a fellow volunteer if they do anything else. Like Marty shared about how he started and now he's a supervisor, and Marianne does like 6 positions or maybe 7. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and count them. But, it's really all up to you and your flexibility and your interest. And that's what makes the Red Cross such a great organization to volunteer for. We're not trying to force anyone into a time slot or into a position. So that is how you become a volunteer with the Red Cross. And again, if you have any questions about that, I'm sure Marianne and Marty would feel free to answer them, as well as Ned and myself. So with that, I'm going to turn back over to Ned, and we open it up for questions. So,
outstanding, Lynn. Thank you very much. And especially Marty and Marianne, thank you not only for your enthusiasm, but for your joining us today and sharing your experiences. And again, it's an honor to work with you. It's an honor to be part of this volunteer team, this overall effort. And I think the most overwhelming message here is whatever you would like to do with the Red Cross, whatever interests you, whatever your schedule allows, whether you want to volunteer from home, whether you want to volunteer in the field, whether you want to volunteer at a blood drive, whether you actually want to volunteer on the road as a driver. It's really all up to you, and you can change and add along the way. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions. If you have any questions, you want to put them in the chat box, please do. Marianne and Marty were both kind enough to share their information. We will send out this deck after this presentation, so you'll have all this at your disposal, including contact information. So, does anybody have any questions, or did we inspire you to get started with the Red Cross?
And feel free to come on camera if you would like to ask a question. Feel free to come on camera. We're here for you.
Of course. All right. They have taught us that 8 to 10 seconds is really good span there. So does anybody have any? First of all, we'd like to again thank. Please, can I get some applause and some thank you hearts and applause in the chat box for our volunteers who joined us today? That'd be wonderful. They were just absolutely fantastic. And again, we couldn't do it without them. There you go. Thumbs up, a couple applauses, much appreciated. A couple of hearts, guys. Thank you. So, Cynthia has a question. Is your hand up? Is that a question? All right, just a hand up. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Guys, we will send out this deck afterwards. Please call us, email us, throw a rock through our window. Don't do that last one. We will help you through the registration process. We will make sure that we find a position that fits your interests, that fits your schedule. You'll learn some new skills. You'll meet some new friends, and you'll find it to be an extremely rewarding and flexible opportunity to work with the Red Cross. And we're very proud. So with that, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for the consideration. Please feel free to share this information with friends and family members as well. We are at your disposal. We work for the volunteers, and we're a great team. So I'd just like to finish by one of my favorite quotes. Very simply says, there can be no greater gift than giving one's time and energy to help others without expecting anything in return. And as much as I love that quote, it's a little bit misleading because you do get something in return. You get a feeling of satisfaction and knowing how much you helped alleviate human suffering as part of the Red Cross team. So with that, if there are no more questions, if there is no more comments, we all like to say thank you. Go enjoy this wonderful day. And we look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you all. Marianne, Marty, you guys were wonderful. Thank you so much. We wouldn't want to do it without you.
Thanks, Ned.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh,
Marianne,
thank you.
take care. All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody. We look forward to talking
Bye.
to